Good evening. I'd like to call the school board meeting for February 9th, 2022 to order at 7 p.m. Let the record reflect that all school board members are present. With that, I'd like to invite you all to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you very much. Item 3 is approval of the school board meeting minutes dated January 26, 2022. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Mr. Mayor,
School board member Richard.
I move we approve the school board meeting minutes dated January 26th, 2022.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by school board member Preble. Any discussion on the minutes? Roll call vote on the minutes. School board member Archie.
Yes.
School board member Preble.
Yes.
School board member Richard.
Yes.
School board member LaFortune.
Yes.
School board member Gale.
Yes.
School board member Truman.
Yes.
School board member Johnston.
Yes.
Minutes pass 7-0. Brings us to item 4, the agenda. Any adjustments to the agenda this evening? Seeing no adjustments to the agenda. Brings us to item 5, any correspondence? No correspondence at this time. Brings us to item 6, public session. If there's anyone of the public who would like to address the school board, please come forward and be heard. Please state your name and address, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor.
Feel free to remove your mask if you'd like.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. My name is Joanne Lopallo. I reside at 7 Margaret Circle, and I have 2 children in the Saco School District, 7th grade and 3rd grade. And just a few short comments concerning the agenda item F tonight of the review and decision of leadership collaboration and continuation with Mr. Ray. My personal opinion, I would encourage each of you on the school board to reach an agreement with Mr. Ray and his team of administrators. Last year, I volunteered and attended at least 3 OSAC meetings because of my mounting concerns about our children not being in school because of COVID. Of the 40 members of that OSAC committee, we could not figure out how to get our kids in school. But yet, we looked right over the bridge and they were doing it in Biddeford. Last year, we had over 130 participants at school board meetings because of the dissatisfaction that was going on. And now, because of the satisfaction of parents and the smooth transition, here we have less than 10 people here. That speaks volumes on what this administration is doing for our children. Believe me, I don't want to be at these meetings. I like that I don't have to attend them, and I feel confident in the leadership we have. From a parent perspective, I'm more than happy at the level this school district is operating. So again, COVID's not over yet. We still have some hurdles to go through. We have a new school building that is going to be constructed, and I think we need a proven leader with a good track record that is going to lead this district. Mr. Ray and some of his administration staff are not only stellar at what they do, they have an even further vested interest in Saco because their own children are students. Don't make a decision that will rock our school district and ultimately harm our children. Again, I encourage you to continue this arrangement long-term because it works. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to address the school board? Please come forward and be heard. Seeing nobody else, moving on from public session to item 7, Superintendent's report. Superintendent Ray.
All right, good evening, everybody. I have a few items for tonight. Just we'll touch on COVID for a second, even though this is outside the COVID update. But just a couple of pieces is that we are in this area, thankfully, seeing a reduction in cases over what it was like when we came back from the holidays. So I really feel fortunate we're moving in the right direction. I know that for the general public, on the media side of things, we've heard a lot of decisions about what other states are doing. And I want to be clear that we have not received any communication from the DOE or from our CDC on this side about anything that's happening. I'm hoping that during a regional superintendent's meeting in the next couple weeks, we'll be talking about those steps of what is the next phase in all of this. But please know that we have not received anything from our CDC or from the DOE about changes to the SOP and what that would look like. So no news at this time. Building committee. We have scheduled a meeting for February 16th that we will email out an announcement tomorrow to all parents, blast on the Facebook page, on the web page. That will be at 6 p.m. at the Fairfield School. And we will have Zoom running to the best of our abilities in that building so that people can ask questions. There'll be two kind of big parts of that meeting. One is to really think about and talk about possibilities of sites and all the work that the site committee has done, and then also have some conversations about program, meaning grade levels, building configurations, and start having those really 35,000-foot view ideas of cost to each option. And again, we're talking really zoomed out, but the overall picture so that as we start to think about some of those decisions, we know what's going on and we know what the impact would be. So that's a really important meeting. I also think at that meeting, kind of having the opportunities, we've been at Burn School, now we're at Fairfield School. It gives us an opportunity if you want to peek around and look a little bit. I'm going to encourage the members there that night to step up on the stage and just look around. Because when we look at one of our buildings having 8 offices up there, Maureen, or something like that, and I know that, of course, being new here and going to and learning about the buildings, when I walked off the stage a few months ago, I thought to myself, wow, we've got to be better than this. This is not ideal. And so we'll get that opportunity to look at those so that we can start putting some of those visual pictures versus what's just on a screen and what's on a slide or a drawing so that we can start thinking about those pieces. As you remember, earlier this year we talked about using some of our ESSER funds for swipe card key systems in our schools so that we can enter each building, through a key card for staff members. You're not carrying keys, and we don't have keys all over the communities. The system is installed. Now we have about 450 swipe cards to print for everybody and program correctly. So within the next couple of weeks, we're going to be online so that staff have that ability to enter in a swipe situation. Through the first round, we're going to look to make sure that we have a swipe card added to the front of the pre-K building. And do that as well, and that will just enhance security, and then looking at how we make sure that exterior key locks have been changed out so that we can really limit that access to the building. That's an important safety piece. Tonight, when you walked in front of you, you all had your budget book with a memo on front of that. I think it's 506 pages of detailed budgeting that will give us from every staff member to every pencil that we're going to buy in that book. Your assignment is to know that by the end of the week, cover to cover, in every line. So if we quiz you and ask some questions, got to build that memory there. But this is for you to look through, ask questions, and it's going to be a little bit different for us because now we're starting to build that foundation of where we need to be financially so that we can predict what's coming next. If a position needs to go here, if we need to. If we have to make a reduction, we have to go to that book and draw the line through what needs to be reduced. So those are some good conversations if we have to get that. Also in your book, you have a memo that will outline some of the budget process for you, some of the additions in there, some of the deletions in there, your revenue sheet, and when we get to budget update here, I'll talk a little bit more about that. Finance committee will start meeting after we return from the February vacation, start pouring through this piece. And then City Council for that kind of monthly update meeting is looking to schedule something on February 28th, I believe it is, Bill, to have that joint meeting. So, thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Ray. Any questions for Superintendent Ray?
Could I get the date again for the joint meeting?
February 28th for the joint City Council School Board meeting, Monday the 28th. Moving on to item 8, Chair's report. Chair LaFortune.
I don't have any specific report this evening. I was going to mention the budget books if Jeremy had not gotten to them. The only other thing that I have, which has been a question that's come up a few times over the course of the last couple months. A couple nights ago at the council meeting, there was a discussion about remote meeting, a policy around remote meetings, and a pretty good discussion about the logistics of what that would take. And I don't know if it actually ultimately arrived at an answer, but I'm anticipating that at some point we probably will be revisiting that here based on whatever occurs or doesn't occur at the council. I'm assuming we're going to want to move in the same direction. So just mentioning that is something that we'll probably see at some point before us.
Thank you. Any staff reports this evening? Not seeing any staff reports. Brings us to item 10, Board Subcommittee meeting minutes. There was a strategic committee meeting on 1/26 of 2022, and then there's a meeting on the February 9th and March 9th for a strategic committee. Finance Committee has a next meeting on March 23rd at 4 p.m. Infrastructure Committee has no meeting scheduled at this time, nor does the Personnel Committee. Any questions on the minutes?
Mr. Mayor,
School Board Member Preble?
I actually had a question going back to Chair's report, and I didn't get a chance to ask any questions on that because we went right into staff reports. So I just wanted to comment that I think it would be really nice if we could explore at some point going to look at Zoom if that's something we want to do for meetings, just because we had an increase in public participation, and I think that's really important to remember. I know we're navigating COVID waters together, but I think it's important because we did have a lot of parents who may or may not be able to come out because of childcare or whatnot. So I think it'd be nice at some point if we maybe revisit that. Thank you.
Thank you. And the discussion on Monday night was we don't currently have the technology to do it. We are looking at possibly using ARPA money to take care of that and or through the budget process in the communications department budget. So it will be going through the process of budget. But remember, public comment, you can always reach out to your school board member, your counselors, through email, phone calls, letters, or coming to meetings. So your public comment is always welcomed in any of those forms. Back to the subcommittee meeting minutes. Any meeting minutes? Any questions on the meeting minutes? Okay. Moving on to item 11, old business. There is no old business tonight. Brings us to item 12, new business. In your packet, there was a list of new hires under item A. Any questions on new hires from Superintendent Ray? Or for Superintendent Ray, excuse me?
No, Mr. Mayor?
School Board Member Truman?
I move
There's
we
one.
approve the nomination of Stephanie Atkinson, CK Burns teacher, and issue a contract for the remainder of the 21-22 school year.
Thank you. Motion's been made by School Board Member Truman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by School Board Member Preble. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Excuse me. School Board Member Archie?
Yes.
School Board Member Preble?
Yes.
School Board Member Richard?
Yes.
School Board Member LaFortune?
Yes.
School Board Member Gale?
Yes.
School Board Member Truman?
Yes.
School Board Member Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Mr. Mayor, there is one other in there that requires action as well.
School Board Member LaFortune?
I move we approve the nomination of Kristen Hobbs, young school special education teacher, and issue a contract for the remainder of the 2021-2022 school year.
Second.
Motion's been made by School Board Member LaFortune, second by School Board Member Truman. Any discussion? Roll call vote to approve. School Board Member Archie?
Yes.
School Board Member Preble?
Yes.
School Board Member Richard?
Yes.
School Board Member LaFortune?
Yes.
School Board Member Gale?
Yes.
School Board Member Truman?
Yes.
School Board Member Johnston?
Yes.
Nomination passes 7-0. Any further motions? Any further questions on any of the new hires? Moving on to item B, resignations. Any questions on the current resignations before you? Superintendent Ray?
I'd just like to thank Celeste Hatch for her 16 years of service to the school department. She was a vital part of the central office. And again, sorry to see her take a different position, but very thankful for everything that she's done.
Thank you. Any further discussion? School
Mr.
Board
Mayor?
Member Johnston?
I would also like to thank Celeste for a lot of years of service, and I appreciate the things that she's done for us in the past. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item C, COVID update. Superintendent Ray?
So like we've done every couple of weeks, we've included a COVID update in your board packet. One of the things that we were able to do is, over the last couple of weeks, we were able to have those two booster clinics. And so the one that we held in Biddeford had 125 students, and then we had one at Saco Middle School that had another 66 students between our communities. I think one of the things we should be really proud of as a community is that our youth vaccination rate is some of the highest in the area, which is a great step. As you start to look at the positive cases by the week, you can start to see that we had that real spike after the holidays, and we're heading in the right direction, so that's really positive. And, you know, again, big thanks to our nurses every time as we go through this, because it doesn't get any easier for them. I know the last couple of days we were just like, oh, please, FedEx truck, come and make sure that the tests come in and that we have enough of those. And we were a little nervous there yesterday, but things seem to be moving in the right direction.
Any questions for Superintendent Ray on the COVID update memorandum in your packet? Okay. No questions there. Moving on to item D, revolving renovations grant. Superintendent Ray.
Okay, so this is to notify the board and the community of a really great opportunity for us here in Saco. If you remember this fall, we came with some grants that we put into play around revolving renovations. And for those who are watching at home or here on the board that don't have an understanding of what revolving renovation funds is essentially districts have the opportunity to apply to the Department of Education for funding for buildings. And you lay out which projects that fall under different categories, from health and safety to repairs of buildings, et cetera. And they look at those applications, and then they award you kind of a grant. And the way that the system works is that if you are awarded this grant for a project, the state will pay the state share of education of that grant. So in the last ED 279, Saco's state share of education was 50.49%, and the local share is 49.51%, which means that we have these capital projects that we can do. We've been awarded from the state, and there's a placeholder for the money. As a board, there's kind of a three-step process for us. As one, the board would have to approve the projects and put those projects in their payment schedule. We'd work with the main bond bank to solidify the loan. The city council would have to approve it at their end of the budget before they pass it on to the voters. And then the voters get to decide if you take this out. And the catch is, the state pays for 50% of these projects, and the community gets to pay on 10 years, 0% interest loan for the remaining portion. So that's a pretty good deal if someone said to you, hey, take a loan at 0% and somebody else will pay half of it, and you get to make some renovations. Those are good projects. So a little bit about the projects that we applied for and we received. Now, the first two projects, or the first project, we have until September of '23 to complete these. And the first project is upgrading the bathrooms, ADA bathrooms at Fairfield School, the ones, little tiny ones that are in the classroom. Now, that's a project that we may want to consider a little bit more, depending on some of the decisions that are made about where the larger state funding building process, because you may say, you know what, we're not gonna make that investment if something else is gonna happen with that building and not, spend $169,000 of taxpayers' money. We also received money to replace the exterior doors at Fairfield School. And that is a situation that no matter what happens, I really will advise you to make that purchase, because they're pretty rough and we're losing a lot of energy. They're rusty. For many reasons, those should be replaced. Then we turn to SMS. And SMS had two approved projects. The first project is to upgrade the indoor air quality and ventilation, which is about a $1.6 million project, but we can come up with $1 million here, we pay half of it, and we could look at how our capital funds that we're, when you look at your budget, I still have capital funds in there at a $500,000 level in that budget, that as we think about half of this being a roof this year, maybe a roof next year, and then a third year finishing a piece of this project, we'll have the ability to address that indoor air quality that over time has been kind of a point of contention here, and we can take care of that. The second one there is exterior doors at SMS are also really a problem. I see Jeff shaking his head. He's been in the building only a few days now, and there are some places that are large gaps. It is a situation where this is a good place to spend money, because not only from poor quality to rust to gaps to heating to security, these pieces will all come into play. So it's exciting to get these. When you get the emails that say, hey, this is something we can make happen for our community at a really good price for the taxpayers to upgrade buildings, which, again, if you think about all of these projects on here and the amount of struggles that communities tend to have around budgeting for capital needs, where are you going to pick off the $1 million air quality project? I mean, we're fortunate right now that we're dealing with half the roof and another half of the roof next year. These become very tough budget decisions, and this is a good possible way to do this. So exciting news for us that we will consider during the budget process and be able to share with the council.
Thank you, Superintendent Ray. Any questions for Superintendent Ray on the revolving renovations grants?
Mr. Mayor,
School Board Member LaForge.
just a question on the date that you listed.
So you have to have work done by September of '23.
Okay, so it's the work itself has to be completed, not that
Correct.
it's actually budgeted.
Right, it has to be completed, which one of the hard things that is, as you think about this, even if you said yes today to some of these projects, probably the doors we can get done by this fall in '22. But when you think of like a project of ADA bathrooms and lining up construction, and you think about movement and cleaning schedules and summer programming and all of the pieces that go into that, that's something that could probably only happen next summer. And then when we think about the air quality piece at SMS, we may want to be thinking about part of that occurring this summer or right after we replace a section of that roof. And then as we move on to the next section, hopefully in the next summer, replacing that piece so that we're not up there getting the roof done first and then doing, we want to combine that work so that, craftsmanship and you're not thinking about leaks and all of the pieces and tearing something apart that just got done. We're going to want to time that really well.
Any further questions? Moving on to item E, budget update. Superintendent Ray.
Okay, so tonight you were able to get your budget books with a detailed budget and a memo on top of that. That information has been or will be posted to the website under the budget tab so that everybody will have access to the full detailed budget and the budget memo that's there that starts kind of talking a little bit about our process. A couple of the pieces that I want to kind of draw some attention to in the memo, and again, we're going to spend so much more time on this after we get back from February vacation and through the process, is as we moved through last spring, we got really great news in the terms of subsidy when the supplemental budget came out and Saco received, $1.63 million more in state subsidy. And we looked at the things that we had at that time as opportunities, and we thought about, okay, we have a building project that's coming on that we need to put $300,000 for in pre-planning. We had a debt that we needed to take care of, and so we made some really good decisions not to use that money and take care of some of those things so that when we started this budget cycle, we weren't like starting from behind. We actually knew there should be some additional revenue. What's challenging about that piece is that in July, because of different valuations, different student counts, and the way subsidy works, you received $1.63 million more. But then 6 months later, when the new subsidy comes out and you're saying to yourself as superintendent, wow, I just hope the subsidy is the same and it's $1.6 million more, and you realize because of the rising valuation in southern Maine and a 7% property valuation increase in Saco, that from 6 months ago, your subsidy is now $514,000 less than what you received. So that is a glimpse to what we're going to continue to see, because we know that state subsidy basically works off two things: property valuation and student counts. And as you can see in this situation, when you look at the data, we have a declining enrollment situation where we're 55 students less than the year before. That's not untypical to any town in Maine. We know that declining enrollments are happening. Class sizes tend to be getting smaller. We have to be able to use some of the information that we will get through the building construction project of what the 10-year glimpse will be. But when you think about it realistically and you think about just looking around your neighborhoods, and are there as many families that have 3 kids or 4 kids as there used to be when we were growing up, that's a change. And then you also have to look at housing stock. Are there houses available in communities? And is there enough of a supply that people can move in? And we know that in Saco, when a house goes on the market, there's not many days or hours that it stays on the market. And so there's just not that stock. What I would really want to, and again, you'll always hear me talk a lot about valuation because that's such a driving factor. And if you look at the first page and you look at the second chart down, you kind of get a glimpse of what Saco's valuation has done since 2016. I went back a little bit, and you can see that the 3-year average of valuation has been creeping up time after time And again, you went up $3 million, and then there was a jump $32 million, and then you added $86 million. And then in 2020, they changed the formula a little bit and added a 3-year average back into valuations versus a 2-year average. And you get to a situation where the last 2 years, the valuation in Saco has increased almost $165 million each year. And then as we look, and so it increased $165 million, and we look at our subsidy, and we lost $500,000. Okay, so that's troubling. And then we look into what the 3-year average will be next year when we sit here at this time, and we're looking at an increase of $181 million, so it's going to go up more. So unless more state subsidy is pumped into general purpose aid, you're going to continue to have these problems if Saco outpaces the valuation increase of the rest of the state. I think I shared at the last meeting that there was $30 million placed into general purpose aid in this year's budget, and 140 school districts received an additional $35 million into their funding formula, and there were 24 districts that lost money. Well, we know which category we were in, and we can also look and see that those are the towns that are in York and Cumberland County, where that, you're getting that valuation increase. In the budget, we have right now, and again, probably a little bit of an overestimation, or let's knock on wood and hope that it's an overestimation, but we built in 10% of an increase on health insurance. Last year, I think we were only at 4% here in Saco, Jason, 4.25%, 5%. But as you look at other kind of insurances and not understanding what the true impacts of COVID will be on some of these situations, for right now, we have a really safe number of 10%, which equals the health insurance is $559,000 of an increase in that budget. But some of that is changing health insurance coverages. But you're looking at about when we get to a point where if it only comes back at 7%, we're looking at about $43,000 a percentage point each reduction that we could take in that budget. We also, you'll have listed some additions that we've made to the budget that we'll cover, some decreases, possibility of some reallocation and some things that we have to consider, whether that be construction project, health insurance, special education, bulk purchasing, those pieces. But the overall scenario of where we are today, and again, I'm not sure I reloaded correctly enough, but you have a situation where the cost to the local right now is under $300,000 of what we'd be asking for. Now you can say, okay, if we're only asking for under 300, I think the number was $217,000, Jason, right now, is what we would be looking for if we made no changes. We can say that that's a great thing, or that's a good day and we've started the budget in a good place, but I want us to be cautious of the fact that our spending is still going up, that we had the fortunate situation where subsidy is helping us out here, that we didn't spend it all and we were able to do some of those pieces, and that valuation is going to continue to grow so that we're not sitting here surprised 365 days from now on the fact of what do we do this time, because now we are looking at a $1.6, $1.7 million increase because subsidy went down and costs still go up. So I think this is one of the, a budget situation, while it's good from a surface view, we've got to continue to dig down and think about what are some of those long-term driving factors in the budget, and think about what a strategy might be as we move over this, because I really strongly believe when you think about budget, in a 365-day calendar. That you're taking too much of a short view. The work that we do here sets us up for the next year. And after you approve the budget, that's when you immediately start thinking about all of the things that happen next. And so we'll want to spend some time talking about, okay, so what does that next piece done? Because I think over time of being in this position as a superintendent, if you can avoid budgets that go up and down and large spikes, that's what you want to stay away from. You want to try to say, how do we consistently keep something managed and not having these drastic ups and downs and spending all revenue just to make sure that we're good one year and not understanding what that impact would be in the second year. So more to come on this. This outlines it, and certainly happy to take any questions through the mayor.
Any questions for Superintendent Ray?
Mr. Mayor,
School Board Member LaFortune.
I don't have any questions at this time. I've only just started to look at it, but I just wanted to say that I really like the concise layout of the starting point of this budget book, just with all of the descriptive information that you just laid out, in nice, concise, readable terms. That's really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. School Board Member Purple.
I have a question for Superintendent Ray. Is our budget book essentially what's the format that's going to be on the website? Is it going to be readable just the same, or?
Sorry. On the website, it's going to be all 506 pages so that everybody can look through
Perfect, okay.
just as well. And when we have questions about things, we're going to talk about page and requisition number. And, I think the idea that can be, if you take things from a super global piece, is everyone says, well, just cut $100,000 or just cut this. Well, when you cut things, it equals something, and we have to be able to understand what that equals. What it also will show when you look through a budget like that, and we will get you the percentages, is most of it, probably 75% plus, is salary and benefits. Or salary benefits, and in this situation, tuition. There is so little money in a budget this size that is supplies. And I always say to school committees or finance committees that we work with, if we spend 8 or 9 hours on pencils and paper clips, we're not getting very far because there's not much there. Now you got to pay attention to those things, Don't step over the pennies to pick up the dollars because it all adds up. But these budgets are about personnel, tuition, programs, utilities. Utilities are one of the pieces that really worry me right now because everybody can go and look at their electric bill in the last month, or if you had heating fuel. Some of that stuff is locked in, but some of it you got to bid out and go for every year. Does it cost you $1 a gallon more next fall to drive buses? Those are some things that we can't control, and it's really difficult because we're in a scenario where I don't know that the average person feels like there's this great property tax increase that can come. And while things cost more in your home as a consumer, there are items that cost more in a school department as well. While there's small amount of monies and pencils and crayons and pieces, the fact of the matter is that box of crayons probably costs more than it did 1 year, 2 years ago. And we may have to think about, how do we go about purchasing items like that? Are we traditionally and still going with, kind of the large vendors, or are we going to do something a little bit differently and think about local? And what can you get here versus what can you get there? And so it's going to be an interesting budget season. While I don't think there's, again, we're not here saying that this is bad news in the 1 year, but we just have to keep our eye on what the future holds and not make short-term decisions because they're easy.
Thank you.
Any further questions on the budget? Moving on to item F, which is review/decision of leadership collaboration and continuation. Chair LaFortune.
Okay, so this item is the culmination of many months at this point of both collaboration with our current leadership team that we have, as well as discussions, again, over several months with our counterparts across the river and up in Dayton around how well this has gone, how each of the parties has been feeling with respect to whether it's something worth continuing. And I'm happy to bring this forward this evening from the perspective of the last couple of meetings, in particular the one that we had most recently with a couple of members from Biddeford. Everyone is very happy with how this process has been going and is excited about the prospect of continuing it. And so this evening, attached to the agenda is a memo that basically highlights the primary points of what continued collaboration is, as well as what continued collaboration is not, because there's a lot of rumor and innuendo and assumptions about what this actually means. And so that memo basically introduces the topic. And to get us started, I will ultimately make a motion, and then we can discuss it further afterwards. So I move that we approve the interlocal agreement between the Biddeford School Department, Dayton School Department, and Saco School Department for a contract for sharing administrative services to begin July 1st, 2022, and ending on July 30th, 2025.
Second.
Motion's been made by School Board Member LaFortune, seconded by School Board Member Preble. Any discussion?
Yes.
School Board Member Gale?
Mr. Mayor, just I guess, so Chair, I guess this is the meeting that was had with Biddeford. This is like a culmination of that, or I guess I didn't get any sort of like report out aside from what you just mentioned. That so Biddeford agrees with everything, the terms.
That's correct. So we had after our last couple of executive sessions, some additions, corrections, clarifications, and the follow-up meeting that myself, Jeff, and Jen had with Mayor Cassavant and two members whose names escape me at the moment from Biddeford, basically just confirmed that the last update that we had discussed, that they were fine with all of the corrections, additions, and any typo cleanups that we had in there. So there's been no substantive change of any kind from the version of the agreement that you all have seen at the last couple of meetings, executive sessions, and the one that we have now. So it's essentially the same.
Oh, sorry. Mr. Board Chair. I reviewed the contract with the things that we were hoping to add, changed, and whatnot, and it did include that.
And I think from the standpoint of we're kind of talking in generalities right now, but the primary items that we were fairly adamant about having included in the agreement, and a lot of it is really just cleaning up the language that's in there to suit all parties. One is that the primary purpose of this entire endeavor is that, and I'm going to just read some things directly off of the draft agreement that we have. The Biddeford School Department and Dayton currently employ an administrative team. Saco wishes to contract with the Biddeford School Department and Dayton to secure the services of a superintendent and a leadership team for the benefit of our school system. That's, in a nutshell, what we are doing. That's what we started to do in April when we found ourselves without a superintendent, and that's what we would like to continue doing. That's essentially the crux of the entire agreement that we have here. The other items, we had been discussing whether extending an additional year was something that everyone was amenable to, and as of one of our most recent school board meetings, we had entertained the possibility of that being longer than a year. And so we had discussed a couple of options. Is it 2? Is it 3? Is it, something in between? We've landed on 3, and so that's one of the other changes. The others that were in there were more around having some of the language be uniform. There's a number of sections under the payment portion of this that have to do with what the division of expenses would be for such things as, if there's central office costs and things like that, those weren't carried through all of them, so it was more of like a typo. And then one thing that didn't change, but I think is really worth calling out, is that this agreement comes with a 90-day termination notice. So if at some point during the course of the next 3 years, any one of the parties decides that it's not working and would like to go our own path, that's true for the city of Saco, it's true for Biddeford, that we get to get out in 90 days. That's a fairly powerful, not only incentive to see through that it works, because you wouldn't want to go into something if you knew that anybody could just jump out at any moment. But it also provides a measure of security to basically all 3 parties, that if it isn't working, you're not stuck in it for 3 years. That's a pretty good clause to have in there. And I'm trying to think if there's any other substantive things that are there. One of the things that I think is part of the memo, if I remember correctly, is that it's really critical for people to understand that all 3 of these entities maintain their independence. There is no change to what is going on up here right now. We're still a school board that governs the city of Saco's school system. We own all our buildings. This is not a consolidation. It is a sharing of services where it makes sense and nothing more. Will we have points in the future where there may be opportunities for additional sharing of some kind? Maybe, but I'm not going to read the tea leaves and say that it's going to be one thing or another. What this agreement provides is essentially a framework for us to want to try to some of those things in the future. Maybe this board is in its current configuration when something like that presents itself. Maybe if a future board decides that this worked really well and they wanted to extend it beyond the terms that are here, and some other board down the road decides they want to do that, or they decide they want to terminate. That's stuff that is all available to us as a school board. So I think I've monopolized the topic for long enough. If anyone else has questions or comments or anything that I've forgotten from any of the previous discussions we've had, please jump in.
I have a question. I've received phone calls recently that have concern around, and I'm doing this for transparency purposes, concern around a conflict of interest. And if memory serves correct, we've been working with our current superintendent and the leadership team for well over, I lost track of time, God bless it. But the point is, I feel like our attorneys would have alerted us to this back when we had our original discussion and interview process. So I just wanted to put that out there and have a conversation around that. I felt that was important that we clear the air and be very aware that we did, when we went through that process, our attorneys were involved in consulting when we entered the initial agreement.
That's correct. And so just to clarify on that point, the intent of the service centers and interlocal agreements like this is collaboration. The state of Maine Department of Education not only recognizes that communities will do those things, they encourage communities to do those things. And as the process, from a process standpoint, this agreement has a couple of paths, a couple of stops along the way between this meeting tonight and it going into force. So if we should approve this evening, the next thing that will occur is the Biddeford School Department will get together and have a similar conversation, probably within the next week, to also signal their approval of this. If that occurs, the next stop on the train is with the Department of Education. The Commissioner of Education still has to sign off on this being an allowed, approved, encouraged arrangement between the three communities that are entering into this agreement. So in terms of us doing this, my personal opinion is that if there was a significant conflict of interest, we would have learned that in May. So I don't think that we're going to get to the end of the rainbow and have the commissioner kick this back and say, no, you can't do that because there's a conflict of interest here. But that's my opinion on the topic.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I guess,
School Board Member Gale?
unless there are other.
School Board Member Johnston, did you want to say something?
Yes, I guess I do. I think that although it may seem convoluted, I think this contract really seems to be pretty straightforward. And I believe Kevin is absolutely right that if there were going to be a problem, we would have already heard about it months ago. And I guess I just wanted to reiterate what I've said times before, which is that I think this arrangement has worked well for this district, and I certainly would like to see it continue. But I don't think we're going to have any obstacles from a legal standpoint. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? School Board Member Archie?
I would just like to say that when it was brought up, we were talking about a one-year extension, which to me seemed kind of like a waste of a time. So I suggested a 3-year contract. I think that is going to get us closer to the end of the school process. And I think it's gone well so far. And to me, that a 3-year only makes sense for the board.
School Board Member Preble?
I'm going to have to agree with Artie on this one. I think the progress we've made in our collaborations over the last year, getting back to 5, we needed that so desperately, and not just parents, everyone. I'm thrilled with how things are going, and I'm in support of continuing for another 3 years. I've really, really took to heart both sides of the topic. I've lost sleep over this, and at the end of the day, I still come back to the same conclusion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? School Board Member Gale?
Just, I guess, a couple real quick comments. One, I think I would like to have the finalized agreement in front of me. I think that would have been nice to see, just a vote on that. But I guess if we're going to move forward, I think I had a couple thoughts just in general. So obviously this decision is going to be one of the most important that we make as a board. And because of that, I've had strong concerns throughout the decision-making process that we've discussed, that we didn't follow a full and open search for this permanent position. I want to be clear that I understand the benefits that are presented in the memo and our course of conversation, and I really appreciate everyone's points of view. A lot of great topics were brought up and discussed, and I think, obviously, I took those to heart. I also want to be clear that my concern isn't a reflection of the success of the superintendent or his leadership team over the past year. I think obviously we've seen and we've heard from the community, from parents, about what great job and the benefits over the last 8 months have been. But really, my concern is just a reflection of my personal strong view that the decision to hire a superintendent should be a collaborative process that involves the community, parents, teachers, and staff, and in my opinion, shouldn't just be a decision of the school board alone to extend from this stage to a permanent position. So I think with that, I'm actually going to lean no on the vote. But again, I just want to highlight that it's not a reflection of the work that's been done or the superintendent or his team. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this item? Okay.
I'd just like
School
to
Board
add.
Member Truman.
I'd just like to add that, despite the fact that we aren't going through a full search, I feel like we've already done a 9-month interview, and the proof is in the pudding. Like, there's no other way to really put it, but I think stand-up job on everybody at SMAC, and to not move forward with this just seems foolish. And there is no conflict of interest. Making phone calls to our attorneys behind our back is uncalled for, in my opinion, and I think, I think what we're doing here is transparent. Everything has been in here. The final agreement is in the agenda for the public to see, for all the school board members to see, and Mr. LaFortune, thank you for sending that to all of us ahead of time before it went public in the agenda. So that's all I wanted to add.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
School Board Member Archer.
I have to agree with Sarah Truman that it has been a long time that we've been doing this interview process, and up until this week, I haven't heard anything from the general public as far as what they wanted, unless I sought it out myself. And that kind of swayed me to making the decision that this is what we want to do. I understand the silent majority, but I put myself out there and I was asking people in my ward what they wanted. And I didn't hit everybody, but I got a good solid number saying that this is the way we should be doing things. That's why I advocated for the 3-year contract, and because of the 90-day clause is why I'm deciding to say yes.
Thank you. School Board Member Preble.
Question for the board chair. When we're finished this entire process, correct me if I'm wrong, the final contract that we have, our agreement will be posted on the website.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep. The final, so for all intents and purposes, the one that says draft that you already have is the same one that we're talking about. There's been no change whatsoever from the one that was sent out, I don't know, was it 2 weeks ago?
Right, no, I understand that. What I'm asking is, once the entire process is completed with the main DOE, everything, that contract will be available to the public on the website.
Correct.
Thank you.
That'll be available, as will the memo in the same place, which is
Perfect.
attached to the agenda right now. And there was sort of a one-pager, PowerPoint sheet with the highlights of the agreement in a much, more digestible form that was being worked out that would accompany all of that. That would be on the website.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on this item? Roll call vote on this item. School Board Member Archie?
Yes.
School Board Member Preble?
Yes.
School Board Member Richard?
Yes.
School Board Member LaFortune?
Yes.
School Board Member Gale?
No.
School Board Member Truman?
Yes.
School Board Member Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-1. Brings us to item G, a first reading of policies as revised. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor,
School Board Member Johnston?
this is a lengthy list, so bear with me while I read through it. I move that we approve the first reading of policy AC, which is non-discrimination, equal opportunity, and affirmative action. Policy ACAB, harassment and sexual harassment of school employees. Policy ACAB-R, employee discrimination / harassment and Title IX sexual harassment complaint procedures. Policy ADAA, school system commitment to standards for ethical and responsible behavior. ACAA-R, student discrimination and harassment complaint procedure. ACAA, harassment and sexual harassment of students. ACAC, service animals in school. And ADC, and the end of the sentence is, I move that we move these for first reading as revised, because we did revise them just recently.
Second.
Motion's been made by School Board Member Johnston, second by School Board Member Truman. Any discussion on the first reading of policies identified and read into the record by School Board Member Johnston? School Board Member LaFortune.
Just a really quick thing. I'm actually quite amazed that you covered all that territory in the meeting that you had, and I just wanted to give a shout out, thank you to Meg Parkhurst and Kristen Dorff for helping shepherd that stuff through. It's quite incredible that all of that ground was covered in a very short meeting, and thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the first reading of policies?
I was going to say the same thing. Thank you for putting that all together for us, Mr. Indorf and Ms. Parkhurst. It was really great, very comprehensive, and it was refreshing.
I'm sorry, Sarah.
School Board Member Johnston.
I would just like to add that the work that they did before they brought this all to us, is certainly, they've sort of pointed us in the right direction. It can be sometimes difficult to focus on policies. You can get tied up in little words. Sometimes that's really important, but they certainly have advanced this process, and I'm looking forward to continue on with it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call vote on the first reading of policy. School Board Member Archie?
Yes.
School Board Member Preble?
Yes.
School Board Member Richard?
Yes.
School Board Member LaFortune?
Yes.
School Board Member Gale?
Yes.
School Board Member Truman?
Yes.
School Board Member Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. That brings us to another first reading of policies. Is there a motion? School Board Member Johnston?
I move we approve the first reading of policies ACAD and ADF as reviewed. And that was, ACAD is hazing, ADF is school district commitment to learning results.
Second.
Motion's been made by School Board Member Johnston, second by School Board Member Truman. Any discussion on the first reading of policy ACAD and policy ADF? Roll call vote on the policies. First reading, School Board Member Archie?
Yes.
School Board Member Preble?
Yes.
School Board Member Richard?
Yes.
School Board Member LaFortune?
Yes.
School Board Member Gale?
Yes.
School Board Member Truman?
Yes.
School Board Member Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Brings us to another first reading of recoded policies. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor,
School Board Member Truman?
I move we approve the first reading of policy ACAF, workplace bullying, as recoded as GBEF. Oh, no, GBEB.
Motion's been made by School Board Member Truman. Is there a second? School Board Member Johnston seconds. Any discussion on the recoded policies? Policy ACAF? Seeing no discussion, roll call vote. School Board Member Archie?
Yes.
School Board Member Preble?
Yes.
School Board Member Richard?
Yes.
School Board Member LaFortune?
Yes.
School Board Member Gale?
Yes.
School Board Member Truman?
Yes.
School Board Member Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Brings us to item 13 of the agenda. Is there any other information this evening?
I have just one quick thing, and it is just something that I became aware of at the very beginning of the meeting. I wasn't aware that you could not view the agendas that come by way of email because they're on Google, and I'm wondering if there's another way by which we can either grant access or send them to the mayor, because it is, I can imagine it is difficult to try to negotiate through what we're doing based on the paper form if there's additional information on the agenda. I just wanted to get that out there so that we at least had, okay.
Seeing no other information, item 14, there is no executive session this evening. Brings us to item 15. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
School Board Member Truman, is there a second? School Board Member Preble. Any discussion on adjourning? Roll call vote to adjourn. School Board Member Archie?
Yes.
School Board Member Preble?
Yes.
School Board Member Richard?
Yes.
School Board Member LaFortune?
Yes.
School Board Member Gale?
Yes.
School Board Member Truman?
Yes.
School Board Member Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes to adjourn 7-0 at 8:05. Have a great evening, everyone.